Om Jnana Jnananjana Shalakaya Chokshurmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today I started focusing on Uddhava's remembrances of the pastimes in Vrindavan. The third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, text 23, which specifically focuses on Krishna as Putana Mochana, the deliverer of Putana, the Rakshasi. And from there I went somewhere else. So let's begin where I tried to begin. Aho bhakiyam stanakalakutam jigam saya payad apyasadvi lebe gatem dachuchatam tatonyam kambadayalum sharanam vrajema. This is Uddhava exclaiming to Vidura, alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. The purport. Here is an example of the extreme mercy of the Lord, even to his enemy. It is said that a noble man accepts the good qualities of a person of doubtful character, just as one accepts nectar from a stock of poison. In his babyhood, he was administered deadly poison by Putana, a she-demon who tried to kill the wonderful baby. And because she was a demon, it was impossible for her to know that the Supreme Lord, even though playing the part of a baby, was no one less than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His value as the Supreme Lord did not diminish upon his becoming a baby to please his devotee Yashoda. The Lord may assume the form of a baby or a shape other than that of a human being, but it doesn't make the slightest difference. He is always the same supreme. A living creature, however powerful he may become, by dint of severe penance, can never become equal to the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna accepted the motherhood of Putana because she pretended to be an affectionate mother, allowing Krishna to suck her breast. The Lord accepts the least qualification of a living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? So I was focusing today on the theme of the Lord accepting the least qualification and awarding the highest reward. We were speaking of Nanda Maharaj meeting Vasudeva in Mathura. And before Nanda Maharaj departed Mathura, Vasudeva gave him a warning that don't delay, don't dally, make your way back to Gokul as soon as possible because there's a high probability of danger. Vasudeva, as we discussed, was already elated to know that Nanda Maharaj wasn't onto the secret of Krishna's birth, his being transferred to Gokul, and the daughter of Yashoda being taken to Mathura. That was a main purpose of Vasudeva, to make sure, or to find out whether Nanda Maharaj knew. And if Nanda Maharaj doesn't know, that means Kamsa most likely wouldn't know. So having ascertained that the mystery was intact, Vasudeva is concerned with his strategic vision as a Kshatriya administrator. Something is going to occur, unwanted. So he wanted Nanda Maharaj, as the Acharyas point out, he wanted Nanda Maharaj to feel fear. And indeed, Nanda Maharaj packed up camp, bullock carts, huge oxen pulling, and the party from Gokul went back. And all the way back, Nanda Maharaj was thinking over and over again, the words of Vasudeva can't be false. He was on alert. Meanwhile, what's going on? You see, both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva knew about Kamsa's policy of exterminating any newborn child in the region, hoping that somehow or other in that dragnet, that feared eighth child of Devaki or whoever would be killed. So that's why Nanda Maharaj went to Mathura in the first place. Yes, to pay his annual taxes. We discussed this. And we discussed also how outrageous it would seem today that you paid the IRS with yogurt and butter, curd. It's a different kind of society, a different kind of civilization then. Of course, we don't have civilization today. So Nanda Maharaj was going to pay his yearly taxes and add something on top of that. Gold coins, valuable cloth, because he was wanting to placate Kamsa. He's doing everything. Nanda Maharaj is doing everything to protect his son. We discussed, remember, how Nanda Maharaj engaged in demigod worship, ancestor worship, giving inconceivable amounts of charity to the Brahmanas, but all 100% for the purpose of Krishna. So now he's going back to Gokul. And meanwhile, what's going on is Kamsa's policy of exterminating newborn children. And a main perpetrator of that abominable activity is Putana, a Rakshasi, a demoniac witch who can shape-shift. She can take any material form according to her purpose. And so the question is going to be, how did she enter into Gokul and everyone gave her full access to the child Krishna? True, Nanda Maharaj wasn't there, but still, the elder cowherd men who Nanda Maharaj put in charge of Gokul while he left to Mathura, they're there. And what to speak of Yashoda, Mai. No one can be a more affectionate, protecting, and loving mother than Yashoda Mai. So how is it that Putana was able to walk into Gokul and right into Nanda Maharaj's home? She took on such a beautiful form. We have to keep that in mind. With her mystic power, demoniac as it is, she took on such a beautiful form that the Brajabasis were astonished, overwhelmed. Who is she? Is she the goddess of fortune? Is she the wife of some big devata, demigod? Who is she? She's so beautiful that Mother Yashoda herself, according to Kavi Karnapur, was thinking, maybe she's the real mother of Krishna. Can you imagine such a thing? Maybe she is the real mother of Krishna, not me. That's the scene. We have to appreciate the inconceivably stunning impact of Putana arriving in Gokul. She had that kind of mystic power. Although she's actually a hideous-looking demoness, she had the mystic power to cloak herself in extraordinary beauty. So Yashoda Mai and the elder cowherd ladies felt honored. Yes, step right up, walk right in. They allowed her to pick Krishna up, and there was a whole scene going on about Krishna closing his eyes. There are different commentaries on why Krishna closed his eyes. Some say he didn't want to see such a hideous creature who had killed so many babies. Others say the Vedas forbid the killing of a woman, a child, an old person, a brahmana. So Krishna knew, I'm going to kill her, but I'll close my eyes. It's not exactly Vedic. So she picks Krishna up on her lap and cuddles him. All the ladies of Gokul are there, just approving. Oh, how beautiful, how affectionate. And of course, Krishna understands who he's dealing with. So he's on her lap, and then he climbs up to raise his head because he knows she's offering him her breast milk, and he knows it's poison. The whole scene still looks so maternal, so full of family affection. And of course, you know what happened. Krishna took her nipple in his mouth like an ordinary baby would do and sucked not only the poison, but sucked her life out. So the acharyas describe that while he's sucking her breast, killing her, he's squeezing her breast with his two little hands and sucking and squeezing, and simultaneously he's kicking her chest with his little feet. She's getting it from all angles. The pain is so great. She's screaming, leave me, stop, stop. There are different presentations of detail as to what happened next. Kavi Karnapur says that it's Krishna who, while squeezing her breast, sucking out her life, and kicking her with his little feet, Krishna threw her out of the house. Of course, in Krishna book and Bhagavatam, we read that out of pain, she just burst out of the house in pain. She's dying. And as you know, she lost her shape-shifted form as a beautiful woman and revealed her original material form as a Rakshasi witch. Krishna skillfully arranged that when she assumed her original form as a 12-mile-long demoness, she didn't crash into the village. She crashed outside the village. And the acharyas explained that particularly in her crashing outside the village, because if she crashed in the village, she could have destroyed the houses of the Brajabasis. But the way the pastime unfolded, she crashed outside of the village, in the forest, particularly in Kamsa's orchard, an orchard dedicated for giving fruit to Kamsa. So you cannot conceive of the devastation Mother Yashoda is going through. What can a mother think? What to speak of a mother who has such affection as Mother Yashoda, that her son, she doesn't know where he is. Where's he gone? Where is Krishna? That's her meditation. Not so much on who is this witch, who is this Rakshasi, where's my son? She fainted, she went unconscious. Finally, the elder gopis told her, he's all right, he's all right. She wasn't sure. Are you tricking me? Are you deceiving me? This is Kavi Karnapur's elaboration. It's very poetic. Krishna knows what to do. The cowherd men, by this time, are rushing towards this huge dead body of a demoness 12 miles long. Everyone's concerned, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? So Krishna climbs up high onto the body, the dead body of Putana, playing. And he's high on her body to show, I'm okay, I'm having a good time, I'm playing. So then the cowherd men take Krishna and give him back to Mother Yashoda. So Uddhava is remembering this because what is the destination of Putana? Who knows? Upon being killed.
She gets a position like a mother in the spiritual world.
Yes, and that's what Uddhava is astonished about. How can you take shelter of anyone more merciful than Krishna, who gave the position, like his mother, to such a she-demon? She was a sadhvi, totally the opposite of saintly. Her breast was full of poison. And what's her end result? And she's from a very deadly family. Agasura and Bakasura. Those are her brothers. Couldn't have a worse family than that. So particularly, she attains a position like one of Krishna's nurses. Generally, we say like Krishna's mother. If you want to drill down into the details, the nectarian details, she attains a position like Krishna's nurses in Goloka, Ambika and Kalimbika. But still, what is she doing at the top of the spiritual world after having tried to kill him? But Krishna, as the purport says, Srila Prabhupada explains, the Lord accepts the least qualification of living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? So Uddhava is exclaiming, Aho Bhakiyam Stanakala Kutam. I can't believe what happened. And how do you find any greater source of mercy than this, Krishna? Krishna took it all right. You wanted to kill me with your poison, but you also had a motherly approach. So you'll die, first of all, because you've killed so many children. You'll die because you're a demon attacking, but what about your maternal approach? I'll reciprocate with that. So this is what got me started today. And then, next time we speak, we'll talk about Lord Brahma's reaction in thinking about this, in his prayers in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. So what happened when I was reading this about how the Lord takes the least qualification from someone so distorted and perverted and gives such a reward? So I was then moved to look at Chaitanya Leela. And maybe these are some pastimes that you haven't so much heard of. Nimai Pandit, this is before he leaves Navadvip. He liked to wander around Navadvip with his associates. And once he was with Srivas Pandit, and they happened to walk by a tavern. In some countries called a pub. I don't know if they still call them bars here in the USA. So Srivas and he were walking by a pub, and the smell of alcohol comes out. All of a sudden, Nimai Pandit goes into Balaram Baba and thinks he's in Vrindavan smelling Varuni. Balaram is within the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are Swayam Bhagavan, as we often explain. They are both the original personality of Godhead. As Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, when Krishna wants to taste love of himself in separation, he manifests as Lord Chaitanya. And when Lord Chaitanya wants to be the supreme enjoyer, he manifests as Krishna. So both are the original Supreme Personality of God is Swayam Bhagavan. So Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna. So there's nothing strange at all that Lord Chaitanya would suddenly launch into Balaram Bhava, feeling like he's Balaram. And what did he say? Let's go inside. Repeatedly, he would, let's go inside. We're going into the tavern. What was Srila Thakur's reaction? Oh, he fell at Nimai Pandit's feet, holding onto the feet, so hoping that Nimai Pandit couldn't go into the tavern. And Srivas very strongly urged, look, he gave 3 reasons why Lord Chaitanya shouldn't go inside. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is in trance. He's in the trance of the ecstasy of being Balaram. And he's not smelling ordinary alcohol. He's smelling Braj Varuni. So Srivas Thakur felt he had to do something. He had to save the day, so to speak. Because Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, is lost in an ecstatic trance of being Balaram and is about to walk into a tavern full of drunkards. So Shiva says, look, number one, you're supposed to be setting the example of Dharma. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if I don't demonstrate the proper path, indirectly I could be accused of neglect, of not caring for my dependents. And whatever a great person does, the common persons follow. So Srivas Thakur pointed that out. You're the emblem, the paragon of Dharma. This is what the people need to see. They need to understand what is the path of real religion. And you show that by your behavior. But here you are about to go inside a tavern full of drunkards. Then number two, what about those who will criticize you? They'll go to hell. It's bad enough they're already criticizing. When they hear this, the criticism will escalate. There'll be no hope for them. And number three, call it a pastime, but who's going to understand it? I can't explain this pastime to anyone else. But Nimai Pandit was determined. I'm going in. He was roaring. I'm going inside. He told Srivas, do I always have to follow rules and regulations? This is very interesting. Because as a sannyasi, later, Lord Chaitanya would so rigidly follow as we discussed the other night, follow the protocols of the sannyasa ashram, that his followers were in pain about it. His sleeping on the floor and without any comforts whatsoever. You know how Nityananda broke Mahaprabhu's danda. What is this? You don't need a danda. You're eternally, unlimitedly a Paramahansa. So Srivas was trying to convince Nimai Pandit, you can't enter the tavern. And you can just picture Srivas Pandit he's on the ground holding Lord Chaitanya's feet. Didn't work. Lord Chaitanya said, why do I always have to follow regular principles? In other words, Lord Chaitanya is the source of morality. There's no question of his being contaminated by the modes of nature. In his expansions, Purusha avatars, they're controlling the modes of material nature. Guna avatars, rather. So, finally, Srivas Pandit pulls out the ultimate. He says, you go in, I'm drowning in the Ganga. That affected Nimai Pandit. All right. And gradually Nimai Pandit came out of his Balaram Bhava, his existential state of being Balaram. Gradually he came out because of the request of Srivas Pandit. He said, I'll accept your wish. In other words, you're my devotee. I'll accept your desire. I won't go inside the tavern. Meanwhile, what's going on inside the tavern? The drunkards are whooping it up. It's Nimai Pandit. Oh, he is a nice gentleman. Oh. He sings and dances so nicely. So they're all talking like this as they're staggering around drunk. And they start calling out, trying to do kirtan. Hari, Hari, and Jai Narayan. They didn't know how to do kirtan so well. They need Maharaj's book. They tried though. Hari, Hari, Jai Narayan. Oh, this Nimai Pandit is so nice. And they're hopping around and staggering. And then they decide to go out of the tavern onto the street because Nimai Pandit didn't come in. They decided, we'll go out. And so they went out on the street making their own Harinam party, staggering drunkards. And Nimai Pandit smiles at them, and Shivas Pandit is crying. The heart of Shivas Pandit, who stopped Mahaprabhu from going in. Now Shivas is crying, his heart liquefied by in spite of the drunken nature of the crew, they've showed some sincerity. So this went on for a while, and then Nimai Pandit, who's continuing to walk, glances over the dancing drunkard chanters, glances over them very mercifully. So Vrindavan Das Thakur points out that these drunkards are much more fortunate than the great pundits, digvijayas, logicians, experts in Nyaya and Sankhya, Dhyana. These drunkards are much more fortunate than all those in Navadvip who criticize Nimai Pandit. Better to be a drunkard trying to vibrate the holy name than a puffed up yogi, scholar, rishi, sage, Sanskritist who criticizes Nimai Pandit. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in his purport that it is a fact in this case that these drunkards, after having that chanting session, they're not going to give up their intoxication. Still, the fact that they chanted, they were trying their best to be sincere amidst their drunken state. Because of that, this is the rarest benediction for them. So you might say, well, what's the use? They went back to their sinful ways, but their existence would never be the same. It has been noted, they have chanted. And so, in this way, Nimai Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the least qualification and gave them the rarest benediction. They could chant Hare Krishna, that's their eternal credit. So you might look at things the other way. Glass half empty, glass half full. How are you going to look at it? But they they tried to chant with sincerity. Maharaj probably remembers, maybe you were there at 26 2nd Avenue when the drunkard came in with the toilet paper? Just before you. Well, it's there in Lilamrita, I believe, Prabhupada Lilamrita. Prabhupada was giving a lecture at the storefront, and in the middle of it, the door opens and in staggers a drunkard, carrying a roll of toilet paper. And the drunkard walks up to where Prabhupada was seated and plunks down the roll of toilet paper and then walks out. So of course the devotees most likely were thinking, what a disruption, it's life here on the Bowery. But Prabhupada said, his devotional service has just begun. So this is what I was thinking, reading about Pujana. But there's another pastime involving so-called Shakta worshippers of Durga. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were walking on their way they were near the town of Jaleshwar, where the temple of Jaleshwara Shiva is. And they came upon a tantric sannyasi. That means Durga worshipper engaged in simple activities, but wearing red cloth. And tantric Durga worshiper means proudly breaks all the regular principles, saying that Durga Ma, Mother Durga, permits all this. Sometimes walking around Vrindavan, you see red-clad, apparent sadhus. They're dressed in red. They're on the side of the road. They have a little altar, sometimes a little fire, and they're smoking a pipe. And before taking a puff, they first offer it to they offer to the deity of Shiva or Durga. It's prasad. And then, so like that, these tantric or Shakta so-called sannyasis. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda come upon one. And Lord Chaitanya all of a sudden turns on, so to speak, turns on his charm. Oh, why is it I have never met you before? Why have I not had your acquaintance before? Tell me, and who are your associates? Tell me about yourself. And so the Shakta starts to bubble forth. Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that. I can tell you about all the Shaktas in all the regions. I can introduce you. I can tell you about them. He's just, Chaitanya Bhagavat says that the Shakta is inspired by the illusory energy. So he's just so delighted, so charmed by Lord Chaitanya. And then he says to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, please come to my mandir. I have some bliss drinks. I got some nice bliss drinks. That means wine. So what does Lord Chaitanya tell him? We'll be coming right away, but please you go back home first and prepare for our arrival. So the Shakta is very happy. Oh, they're coming. We're going to all have bliss drinks. So he races back to his home to prepare his home for the drinking session. But Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda never come. So what's going on here? It's a deep situation that definitely requires some commentary by the acharyas to understand. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur analyzes it from various angles. He said, this is Lord Chaitanya cheating the materialists. They're so attached to their material enjoyment that Lord Chaitanya is just saying, oh, that's the way you want to be? Oh, okay, yeah, we're coming, to get rid of them. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that his Guru Maharaj, Gorkishore Das Babaji, also did the same thing. He would apparently condone what materialists were doing to get them out of his association. Yeah, right, go do it, just get out of here. But then another angle is presented that this is Lord Chaitanya being Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the most fallen. And his followers, Vrindavan Das Thakur points out that the followers of Lord Chaitanya who are witnessing all this, they understood what would ensue. They understood what would happen. That this Shakta, although apparently so fallen, he would be, by Lord Chaitanya's desire, delivered. He would become a bhakta. And then, just like when Lord Chaitanya tours South India, he meets someone, that person becomes Krishna conscious, that person leaves Lord Chaitanya's association and meets someone else, and the person they meet becomes Krishna conscious. So it's a chain reaction. So Vrindavan Das Thakur said the devotees knew this is what's going to happen. The Sakta is going to become a Bhakta, and then everyone the new Bhakta meets is going to become a Bhakta, and this way Lord Chaitanya's mission expands. It was very interesting. Different angles for different occasions. The drunkards we talked about, the drunkard Harinam party, they didn't stop their sinful activities, but still it's on their record that they glorified Lord Chaitanya. They had positive, affirmative feelings towards Nimai Pandit. But there's another one, another incident, which I'm just now trying to assimilate. So I'll take advantage of your association, especially the presence of Jayadvaita Swami, to try and immerse myself in this and convey something to you. So this is Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda on their way to the house of Advaita Acharya. Now, evidently, this is still Nimai Pandit. He hasn't taken sannyas yet, but Nityananda is wearing sannyas clothes. So, they're in a village named Lalitapur. And in that village happened to live a tantric so-called sannyasi who was attached to immoral activities as devotion to Durga. So Nimai Pandit notices the house and asks Nityananda, "Do you know whose ashram this is and who stays here?" And Nityananda replies, "Prabhu, this is the house of a tantric sannyasi." Lord Chaitanya says, "Well, if we're fortunate, we can meet him." Once again, Patita Pavana in action. How is this going to unfold? So the two Prabhus smile as they went into the tantric sannyasi's house. And Vishvambara, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offers obeisances to this degraded sannyasi. And the degraded sannyasi, upon seeing Vishvambara's enchanting form, his beautiful limbs, his smiling face, the so-called sannyasi, with great satisfaction, offers Vishvambara various benedictions. What kind of benedictions? May you achieve wealth, family, a good wife, and learning. What was Mahaprabhu's reply? "Oh, Gosai, Goswami, this is not a benediction. You should tell me, may you attain the mercy of Krishna." The benediction of devotional service to Vishnu is inexhaustible and indestructible. What you have said, offering me the benediction of family, good wife, wealth, learning, these material benedictions do not befit you, O Gosai. Please, Goswami. What was the reaction of the tantric so-called sannyasi? He smiled. "I am now," he said, "I am now directly experiencing what I have previously heard about. This is the age of Kali, when such a young boy dares to instruct his elder." This is the effect of the age of Kali. "I'm now experiencing that. I previously heard about it." He goes on to say, "You try to give good advice to someone and they'll chase you with a stick. The behavior of this young son of a Brahmana is just like that." This son of a Brahmana, Nimai Pandit, has taken on the business of perverting the truth. "What did I do? I happily awarded him the benediction of wealth, a good wife, nice family, and learning. And what does he do? He finds fault in me. So he says to Nimai Pandit, listen, O son of a Brahmana, why do you criticize my benediction? If someone who has taken birth in this world does not engage in sense gratification, does not enjoy beautiful women, and does not accumulate wealth, then what is the use of his life? This would be considered standard gospel these days. And you are embarrassed to accept the benediction of such wealth? What's the value of your life? What's the use? This is a common theme in today's so-called human society, which is so focused on economic growth as the Shuddha Sattva principle, pure goodness. Whatever we were talking the other day, no matter what religion you follow, no matter what your political party, practically speaking, everyone is united on the insistence that there must be more economic growth, more economic growth. Never mind that it's destroying the planet, never mind that it's destroying people's psychology. The only solution is more economic growth, more economic growth. So what this tantric sannyasi is saying is standard gospel today. There's no way to progress in this world without wealth. How can you fill your stomach by devotional service to Vishnu? So the tantric sannyasi goes on. Tell me, he's talking to Nimai Pandit, even if you have devotion to Vishnu, what will you eat if you don't have wealth? So Nimai Pandit smiles and just like that. And says, hoy, hoy, like, oh my God, OMG, oh my God. We were speaking the other night about a very famous economic treatise by a Harvard professor, Benjamin Friedman, I believe is his name, entitled The Moral Necessity of Economic Growth. That economic growth must be there in order for people to be moral. Instead of dharma leading to artha, no, first artha and then dharma. When there's lots of money and a booming economy, people behave themselves and they treat each other nicely. But when the economic development, the economic growth is flat, then people start getting nasty to each other, intolerant, bitter, combative. So we always need more and more economic growth as a moral necessity. Because in other words, economic growth creates morality. Without economic growth, there can be no morality. Such are the conclusions of the demons. So Mahaprabhu is insisting to teach everyone that do not aspire for anything except devotional service. What about eating? How do you eat? If you don't strive for wealth as your number one consideration, how will you eat? So Mahaprabhu explains about karma. We will all certainly eat whatever is destined by our karma. If it's so, Nimai Pandit is saying, if wealth and family are the aim of life, then tell me, why are they taken away at the time of death? course, the Kali Yuga current answer to that would be, well, enjoy it while you have it. I was just reading one quotation from a current Kali Yuga celebrity. Happiness is not something you plan for the future. Happiness is what you design for today. And what's another one? Your body is not a temple. It's an amusement park. Enjoy the ride. So Nimai Pandit is presenting the facts. If what you say is true, he's taking apart with logic the presentation of the Tantric Sannyasi, just as our Jayadvaita Maharaj is expert in taking apart things with logic, combined, saturated with bhakti. So, if wealth and family are the aim of life, then tell me why they are taken away at the time of death. Why are you forced to relinquish it all? Of course, the current answer would be, well, get it while you can. Like an old song goes, hey everybody, let's have some fun. You only live but once, and when you're dead, you're done. Let the good times roll. That's the Maha Mantra for today. So Nimai Pandit continues with a logical presentation. No one wants fever. Why then does fever appear and afflict one's body? The cause of all this is karma. And then Nimai Pandit explains about the Vedas sometimes pro-offering heavenly planets enjoyment. But Nimai Pandit said, such teachings are simply the compassion of the Vedas on the foolish, to at least bring them under the banner of the Vedas so they can make some kind of slow spiritual progress just by accepting the Vedas as authority. The Vedas say, do this to go to heavenly planets and enjoy. I'm Vedic. So Nimai Pandit explains, people take great pleasure in material happiness, and the Vedas offer directions according to their mentality. What is the fault of the Vedas? And he gives the example. The Vedas declare, take bath in the Ganga and chant the name of Hari, and you'll get wealth and children. So people do it. Oh, let me bathe in the Ganga and chant Hari, I'll get wealth and children. But, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explains in the commentary, by engaging in such activities like taking bath in the Ganga and chanting the name of Hari, gradually their natural contamination is destroyed, even though their objective is material. Gradually an inclination for devotional service is awakened. So finally, Nimai Pandit tells him, try to understand what is good and what is bad. There is no benediction other than devotional service to Krishna. That's something we all can meditate on. There is no benediction other than devotional service to Krishna. Sometimes devotees ask, where's the flood of love of God that Nityananda and Chaitanya have set loose? Where is it? When you talk about the flood of love of Krishna, you're talking about the flood of devotional service. There's no question of love without devotional service. What was the Tantric Sannyasi's reaction to hearing such a powerful presentation with logic, shastra? He smiled and said, I can understand that this young Brahmana boy has become crazy. He's misguided. And it appears that his sannyasi companion, he's referring to Nityananda, has spoiled this young Brahmana boy's mind and is taking him way off the course. So the tantric sannyasi further said, just see the way times are today. I am ignorant talking to a child. I have traveled throughout the world to Ayodhya, Mathura, Haridwar, and Badrikashrama. I've been to all the holy places, Gujarat, Kashi, Gaya, Vijayanagara, Sri Lanka. I've been everywhere in the world. Yet I don't know what is good and what is bad. And now this child, he's referring to Nimai Pandit, this child who's still drinking his mother's milk is teaching me. This Brahmana boy, with no appreciation of my experience or understanding of his position as a suckling child, has come to teach me. What is the world coming to? Now Nityananda is going to intervene. Listen, Gosai. There's no need to argue with a child. I know very well of your glories. For my sake, please forgive this child's offenses. So when the tantric sannyasi heard such glorification of himself, he was very pleased and immediately invited Nimai Pandit and Nityananda for lunch. Nityananda said, we have to leave immediately for some important work. You may give us something that we can eat on the way after taking bath. So the tantric sannyasi said, please, take bath here, eat something, feel refreshed, and then go. So Vrindavan Das Thakur points out that the two Prabhus have incarnated to deliver the sinful living entities, so they agreed for that reason to remain in the tantric sannyasi's house. So they went and took bath in the Ganga and came back and had some fruit. They offered their food. They didn't take anything from the tantric sannyasi. They had their own food, milk, mangoes, and jackfruit. They offered to Lord Krishna. And then they sat down to eat. Now it gets more intense. The tantric sannyasi was a wine drinker, so he's making some signs to Nityananda. He's attached to drinking wine, so he indicates to Nityananda Prabhu that, yes, let's have some drinks. You should also drink. So he was doing this repeatedly. Come on. And he says, listen, Shripad. He's talking to Nityananda. Shall I bring you some Ananda? Where else can I find such wonderful guests like you? So Nityananda, showing that he was, shall we say, streetwise and savvy, that he could understand, what's going on here? Ananda, the Ananda beverage, we know what that is. So he deduced that this tantric sannyasi was a drunkard. So repeatedly the sannyasi is asking, shall I bring some Ananda? And Nityananda says, I think we should go now. Meanwhile, the wife of the tantric sannyasi is watching the two lords with full concentration, and she's positive, supportive. She tells her husband, why are you bothering them? Why are you disturbing their meal? So then Nimai Pandit, in this pastime, doesn't know what does this talk about Ananda, he asks Nityananda. What is this Ananda the sannyasi is talking about? Nityananda replies, I think he's talking about wine. Vishvambara immediately remembers, Vishnu, Vishnu. He washes his hands and immediately leaves. And then the two, Nityananda and Nimai Pandit, jump into the Ganga. And they go to Advaita Acharya's house by floating in the waters of the Ganga. End of pastime. All right, any questions? Comments from our sagacious guest? Yes.
Gurudev, thank you for reminding us about the compassion and the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that a wise person should not disturb someone who is acting in ignorance. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the devotees are even more kind than the Lord, knowing the purpose of the Lord, and so they go to great lengths to try to help those who do not want it. How can we understand that the devotees are more kind than the Lord?
Krishna says at the end of the Gita, don't speak this message, don't talk about it to those who are envious, who are not austere. That leaves all of us out. Maybe not you. But it leaves everyone else out. But that same Krishna comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and breaks all of Krishna's rules. So that's what we're hearing about. Lord Chaitanya, when he wants to be merciful, who can stop that? Yet still, he has his standards. Any further comments, Maharaj? Actually, Srila Prabhupada explained that the more sinful people are, the greater the opportunity for service it is. So usually we think, oh, they're so sinful. We forget about ourselves. They're so sinful. What can be done? But another way to look at the situation is that this means more opportunity for service. Just like sometimes I hear that people don't read anymore. What's the point in distributing Prabhupada's books? It's not like the 60s or 70s when people were reading books and very curious about knowledge. They're attracted to wisdom of India. It's not like that anymore. But if you think that is so, why not see it as an opportunity to do more service by helping them to read the books? Even if you have to hold their hand as they turn the pages. I meet so many people who tell me, I got this book, Bhagavad Gita, and I say, I know what you're doing. It's the library angel approach. What's the library angel approach? Does anyone know? I just sit there with the book in my hand, and whatever page it opens up to, that's the meaning intended for me for the day. I just depend on the library angel. So I thank them for at least letting the book fall open on their lap. But I say, look, the way to read a book is you start at page 1 and you go to the end. You understand? Oh, is that how you do it, huh? So I explained to them, Bhagavad Gita is like a symphony. There'll be things in it you don't know about, things that you're familiar with, things that you can't understand at first. Just stick with it to the end. It's like a symphony and at the end of it, it all comes together. Oh, really? So I have to say this again and again and again, all over the world. Not India, but especially in the Wild West. You have to inspire them to read the books rather than just say, no one's interested in reading. They don't understand the books. Who can understand Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam? Help them understand. See it as an opportunity for more service. And what makes you think that people can be like this forever, so distracted by the mass weapons of distraction? Society changes. Upheavals come and go. I remember during the Soviet bloc days in Eastern Europe. Yeah, I remember in Poland. Of course, we have Surapal and Krishnamai. Surapal was around back in those days. We succeeded in smuggling behind the Iron Curtain truckloads of books straight from the printer in Germany by bribing, by various maneuvers, like 10,000 Bhagavad Gitas, 10,000 Krishna books at a time. And I remember the devotees in Warsaw taking these books on book distribution in the center of the city in the freezing winter cold. And they were so happy that the tears were freezing to their cheeks. And they were selling these books, a hardcover Bhagavad Gita for 1 month's salary. And people were buying them like anything. 1 month's salary for a hardcover Bhagavad Gita. They were so desperate. Is it like that now, Sir Paul? They're still paying 1 month's salary. Those were the days. The devotee would go into the center of the city. European cities have these squares in the center, and with a big backpack loaded up with books, Krishna book or Bhagavad Gita, and then spread the word. I have books from the West. Ancient Indian yoga books from the West. Meet me on a side street. So then the devotee, after the word would be buzzing in the city square, the devotee would leave the square and go off on a side street and wait. And then all these people would come trying to sneak off the main street, down the side street, lining up with 1 month's salary in their hands to buy a Bhagavad Gita as it is. So you might say now, where are those days? Things change rapidly. Adibhutam Shado Bhava. This material world, Krishna explains, is endlessly mutable. It's always changing. Wherever people are at, whatever their mentality, we try to assist them. Rather than say, oh, impossible, what can be done? They don't want to read, you help them read. Inspire them. If you get mental like they're mental, oh, they're not into reading, what's the use? They can't understand these books. The books have strange titles, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Gita Nagari in the books. And if you have that kind of mentality, they'll pick up on it. But if you are positive and upbeat, everyone's reading these books. What's the difficulty? You just start with page 1 and you turn the pages to the end. If you're upbeat and enthusiastic, they pick up on that. Your attitude, they're tuning into your attitude. So remember, the more out of it people are, the more the opportunity is for service. Reverse thinking. I always tell this story. The first time I saw Jayadvaita Swami, he was a brahmachari. I saw him on television, May 1972. And I said, who is this guy? Lit up like an electric bulb. Who is this? I zeroed in on him. There were other persons there too. There was one devotee of color, brown-skinned devotee. So my roommate and I said, well, look at that guy. What's he doing with these aliens? Who does he think who does he think he is? 8 months later, I was in the Brahmacharya ashram. And yes, that's when I first learned the word Ananda. The devotees kept using that. That was the preaching back in those days. Ananda, everything is bliss. Ananda. So I learned the word just by watching the TV show. While the TV show was still going on, I turned to my roommate and said to him, they talk about Ananda, eh? Bliss. We'll invite them to one of our parties. We'll show them what Ananda is. Next month I was reading Bhagavad Gita. So don't take people too seriously these days. If they are that dull and they can't understand anything, just pop a samosa in their mouth. Don't get intimidated by the way they are today. And material nature is helping. It's harassing them environmentally, it's harassing them politically, it's harassing them economically. It's not called anymore this crisis or that crisis. As I explained the other day, it's called the poly crisis. All those crises happening at once, impinging on one another. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question around, I guess it's like it almost seems like a preaching strategy. Mahaprabhu will play dumb and just let these, I guess, sannyasis or other people expose their position, and then he'll like preach to them. And I'm kind of curious, what is this like almost playing dumb approach to preaching, where you just kind of let someone feel like they're the authority and let them expose what they believe and then like reverse it on them?
I don't know if you call it playing dumb. It's, what's the word, empathy? You're listening. You're hearing them out. This is what Lord Chaitanya did with Prakashananda Saraswati, 7th chapter, Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He did the same with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I'm worried about you. You're such a beautiful young sannyasi. I think you're going to have some difficulty unless I recite Vedanta to you. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya went on and on, speaking what he thought was Vedanta. And he said to Lord Chaitanya, you haven't said anything all this time. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Have you grasped what I'm explaining? And Lord Chaitanya said, I know what Vedanta is, but I don't understand what you're saying. But he heard him out. Of course, you have to have some strength to be able to withstand letting someone talk and talk. And on book distribution, you probably don't have that time. But it's a tactic. You let the person, just like Lord Chaitanya said to the tantric sannyasi, why have I not met you before? Where have you been? Who are your associates? And the tantric sannyasi got so excited talking about himself. I can tell you about every tantric sannyasi in Bengal. I know them all. He thought Mahaprabhu was really interested. But that's compassion. But you have to know how to catch the fish, so to speak, without getting wet. how to rescue the drowning person without you drowning too.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really interesting. Because people can go on a tangent and just drag you with them. So
That's right.
How to guide them while letting them feel like they're in control of the discussion at that point.
You have to cut to the chase at some point. Now, there are different preaching tactics. Some will cut to the chase that very moment. Others will say, we'll wait a few hours. Others will say, wait till next week. But I don't get into disagreements about this. I just say, at some point, you've got to deliver the goods. Okay? Some of us are quicker than others at that. But at some point, we should all agree that at some point, you have to deliver the goods. If you don't deliver the goods, what's the use? All right. Oh, way in the back. Mars, please, if you feel you need to cut out, please. We're not at all. Yes, this will be the last question, in case you're interested. Unless you want to say something. Okay.
What should be some standards regarding letting people move into our centers?
Ooh, that's a real general question. Depends on what kind of center you have. And when I moved into the Brooklyn Temple in early 73, February 73, I was not chanting 16 rounds. I was chanting 13 rounds a day. And I told the temple president that. He said, that's all right, especially since I had already donated equivalent to today's currency. I donated $20,000. Yeah, come on in. And I had read Prabhupada's books 3 hours a day for 6 months straight. When I got to the temple, I found out that most persons hadn't done that. Of course, there was Jayadvaita Brahmachari and the other BBT people. They were very well read, but most weren't. I had read everything that was out at that time, everything that was published twice. So I can't answer your question, it's too general. Sorry. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.